I am pleased to introduce President Debora L. Spar, the 7th president of Barnard College. This is President Spar's 3rd reunion. Prior to coming to Barnard, she was the Spangler Family Professor at Harvard Business School and Senior Associate Dean, Director of Research. A political scientist by training, President Spar's academic research focuses on issues of international political economy, examining how rules are established in new or emerging markets and how firms and governments together shape the evolving global economy. She is the author of numerous articles and books, including most recently, Ruling the Waves, Cycles of Invention, Chaos, and Wealth from the Compass to the Internet, and The Baby Business, How Money, Science, and Politics Drive the Commerce of Conception. And now, President Spar, we look forward to hearing about Barnard today.
Good afternoon, and welcome back to Barnard. It's a great joy and a pleasure to see so many of you here today, to see so many familiar faces and a bunch of faces that to me at least are new. So welcome. The weather gods have been good to us, and I hope you will enjoy a wonderful couple of days here. Thank you to Pat and to all the people who've worked so hard to get us to this point and to make this weekend such a great success. What I'm going to do for the next few minutes is I'm going to give you at classic New York warp speed a sense of what's been happening at the college over the past year. I apologize if this sounds a little bit like a laundry list, but there's a lot going on, and I just want to give you a very, very brief overview of some of the major developments. One of the most important things is something very tangible that hopefully you've all had a chance to enjoy already, and that's the new Diana Center building. The building opened last year, but this has really been the first full year in which our students have come onto campus, seen the Diana, and totally made it their own. Every time I walk in that building, the word colonization pops into my head because the students have truly colonized it and crept into the little corners and claimed their spots, and it's really transformed campus and student life to have that building here. So I know we have lots and lots of things on your calendars for the next 2 days, but take some time, go to the Diana, explore around it. It's really just a wonderful place, and it's been transformative on the campus. Another major development this year that I'm particularly delighted to share with this crowd is we brought the Greek Games back to campus. And I just have to give you a little bit of the backstory on this. As Pat mentioned, I've been here 3 years, and I've done a fair number of alumni events during that time, and inevitably, whenever I spoke with Barnard alumni, they would tell me about the Greek Games, they would tell me whether their class won or lost in a particular year, they would tell me that they had been the horse or pulled the chariot or done something else equally important, and I thought, you know, this sounds like it was a really good thing. And I mentioned it to a couple of students. And being the strong, amazing Barnard women they are, they decided to take it on and to bring the games back. And they did it, and it was wonderful. So I want to give them in absentia a round of applause. They did a particularly nice job, in my opinion, of blending the old with the new. So we brought back the chariot, which was still remarkably in the basement somewhere. And they added to it yoga in a toga, which was a great success, and Plato's Pilates. So it was a great couple of days. It started out small, but they're really hoping to grow it, and I'm hoping they will, because it's a wonderful way of maintaining a tradition and creating it afresh. It's been a busy year for me personally, along with my wonderful colleague, Dorothy Denberg. We have been trying to expand Barnard's reach and to spend as much time as we possibly can, not only with alumni in the New York area, but as far afield as our little legs can carry us. So between Dorothy and myself, and correct me, Dorothy, if I'm forgetting anything, we have been to Dallas, Houston, San Francisco Bay Area, London, Paris, Palm Beach, Philadelphia, Boston, Chicago, LA, DC, Philadelphia, and Israel. And we're hoping to double that next year. So watch out, we're coming. And we are really determined not only just to drop by and say hello, but really to think creatively about how Barnard can get more engaged with our alumni, regardless of where they live. It's been a good and a busy year on the fundraising front, a subject which of course is very, very important to all of us charged with running this college. And as we were putting together some of the interesting milestones, we noticed, interestingly, that many of the key events concern people who are in reunion classes this year. We won 2 big grants from the National Science Foundation, the largest of which was a $1.8 million grant to renovate our chemistry labs. And any of you who were chemists while you were here or took chemistry should know that the chemistry labs had not been renovated since you were here, pretty much regardless of what class you're in. So given the number of women that Barnard has historically educated in the sciences, it has been a major objective of ours to renovate the science labs. So thanks to the grant from the NSF and others, the renovations to the chemistry labs will be done by September, and they look terrific. And we are now looking ahead to completing renovations in the biology labs. This remains a major fundraising goal for us. So any of you who are looking for something meaningful to do, who have had a good experience in the sciences, please talk to us, because it's really critical that we get our students the research and the learning spaces that they need. We renovated or rethought our scholarship dinner this year. And some of you may know this because you come every year, but others of you may not. We have a scholarship dinner once a year, usually in April, and it's always a lovely event. And we do, as many New York organizations do, we've always done an auction where you can purchase a week at a vacation home or a really nice manicure or something like that. This year we got rid of all of the auction items except for one, and we auctioned off scholarships, because that's what we're about. And with a great deal of trepidation, our auctioneer went out there and said, who will put up their hand for a $50,000 scholarship? Because that's what it costs. And we raised 4 people put up their hands for a $50,000 scholarship, and then we ratcheted it down a little bit to 25. We raised $600,000 for scholarships alone. And when we added in the overall receipts from the night, we raised a record-smashing $2.3 million, which was wonderful. And we credit much of the success for this to 2 of the people who were deeply involved with the event. One is Ellen Futter, class of '71, being honored at the event. She was honored along with Professor Emerita Barbara Novak, whom many of you, I'm sure, know and love. And one of the people who played a major role in co-chairing the event and speaking to Ellen, and on Ellen's behalf, was Nancy Garvey, also class of '71. So kudos to the class of '71. Another major milestone this year is a number of us have been working for some time now to get more art on campus. Barnard, as you know, is a phenomenal place to study art. We have one of the best art history departments in the country. We have phenomenal students who go on into the art world, and yet if you look around campus, there's not much art here. So thanks to the great efforts of Karen Raven and her staff, we now have a policy that allows us to accept art, which we didn't have in the past, to insure it and take care of it and all those important things. And we got our first major donation of a piece of artwork. It is this incredible bench by conceptual artist Jenny Holzer that I hope you all will have a chance to see. It's out on the lawn. It's called Truisms. It's a spectacular piece of work, and it came to us due to the incredible generosity of Virginia Wright, who is celebrating her 60th reunion this year, along with the class of 1951. So. And finally, on the fundraising side, I just want to note and also implore you that because Barnard is poorer than many of our peer schools, we rely far less on our endowment than other schools do to pay for our yearly expenses, the critical things like scholarships and faculty support. To cover those things, we really rely on the Barnard Fund. Those little envelopes you get frequently in the mail, those emails you get. The Barnard Fund is critical to us because it really gives us our operating expenses every year. And this year, the Barnard Fund is doing particularly well. It's raised about $5 million, and total donations to the fund are up, as of last count, by $150,000, but we have 28 days to go before we close the books. So please walk around campus, think of the students who are here, and we are really trying to close the year for the Barnard Fund up even more. And one of the reasons the Barnard Fund is up is we're seeing record-breaking participation by our younger alumni. So kudos to those of you who've graduated in the past few years, and please take it as a good example, those of you who graduated a little bit earlier. I also want to mention, as you may know, one of my main priorities since coming into the wonderful job I now have has been to expand the college's global presence, to make sure that Barnard is a name that's known not only in Manhattan and not only in the East Coast, but across the country and across the world. And as part of that effort, we launched 3 years ago a series of global symposia. And what we have done is we've settled into a pattern where we go to a different part of the world once a year. And in that part of the world, we convene a forum to celebrate what the women from that part of the world are doing to change not only their lives, but the lives of other women and the lives of their countries. We did the first symposium in China in 2009. We went to Dubai in 2010. And this past March, we went to South Africa, which was a phenomenal experience. We had over 450 people come to the event, and these are all local Africans, some expats, but mostly local Africans, to hear from 12 of the most inspiring women I have ever heard in my life. They were a combination of women who have led the struggle in South Africa, in Rwanda, in Uganda, to change these countries for the better, and younger women who are following in their footsteps. It was a remarkable event, and we expanded it this year, and this is something we're for certain going to maintain in the future. We were lucky enough to get very generous sponsorship from Barclays Bank. We brought along 6 of our own current Barnard students, and they spent the day working with an incredible African high school named the African Leadership Academy, which takes students from across the continent. And our students taught leadership skills to the high school students. And then we had students from 8 different high schools, including, we were just talking about the United World College in Swaziland, joined us. And so we had a combination of women who have been living their lives and fighting for change, and very young women figuring out how to live their lives in a way that matters. So it was an incredible event, and we are going to Mumbai, India next year. So any of you who want to get involved, who want to come, who have connections in India, please come see me. It's really been a wonderful initiative we've started here, and very proud of what we've accomplished thus far. We had commencement short 2 weeks ago, when the weather sadly was not nearly as nice as it is today. But we made up for it, I hope, by having just a stellar commencement speaker. The speaker was Sheryl Sandberg, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Facebook. I hope all of you have a Facebook page. If you don't, I'm sure your children and grandchildren have Facebook pages. And Cheryl was incredible. I would really advise you, go to the website and just listen to her commencement speech. There was an article that came out yesterday in a completely separate magazine that we have nothing to do with, that wrote just about her speech, saying that virtually all commencement speeches are totally unmemorable. They say nice things about go out and conquer the world, but nobody remembers who their commencement speaker was. Think back. I don't remember mine. Cheryl was memorable because she didn't mince words. She told these young women, these 22-year-olds, that women of her age, I think she's all of 42, had blown it. That her generation, my generation, had not succeeded in changing the workplace and changing society the way they should have. And she told the young women how important it was that they lean into their lives, lean into their jobs, and not pull back. And it was incredible how powerful her words were to the students. So it was a great event, even though it wasn't outside as we had hoped. But take a moment to read it or to listen to it on the website, because it's an extraordinary speech. And while Cheryl was here, I managed to grab her for a few minutes and say, by the way, we're having a problem with Facebook. And if any of you know, our alumni pages on Facebook do not work as well as they should have for complicated reasons. She fixed it. So if you go back now, you see the Barnard bear. All right. I want to take just a few more minutes to give you some great news looking into the future and sort of what's on our minds for the coming few years. The first thing is, as always, many of us here on campus sort of obsess over our admissions statistics and picture, because ultimately we succeed by attracting the best and the brightest and the most ambitious and the most creative students here to this campus. So we spend a lot of time thinking about 17-year-old girls and how we make sure that Barnard is very much on their radar screen. And we had a lovely year in that regard. One thing that happened just totally serendipitously was a gentleman who none of us had ever heard of wrote a piece in the Huffington Post about coming to Barnard with his high school daughter. And he started out by saying he was really against women's colleges. He thought they were silly, he thought they were outdated, and most importantly, I guess he had grown up as a young man close to Smith. He thought they were really just for providing young men with large numbers of available women. But then he said he came to Barnard. And again, we don't know this guy. We had no connection to him. We did not pay him. And he said he had a transforming experience coming to Barnard. And he, like any parent of a 17-year-old, he was on the college tour circuit. He saw magic, and he saw young women being transformed, and he saw the power of educating women for at least some portion of their lives just with other women. And he wants his daughter to come here. He wants every girl in the world to come here and go out, find it on the Huffington Post. It's an incredible, really moving piece from someone whom, again, we have no connection to. We had an equally incredible year just looking at the numbers. I'm an economist in my past life. I spent a lot of time dealing with data. We had 5,154 applicants to college this year, the highest number we've ever had. The number, yes, give ourselves a round of applause. Those numbers were up 12% from our total last year, which was up 10% from the total the year before, so we are really just on an upwards trajectory. The most interesting number for me was looking at the number of young women who applied to Barnard early decision. Because those are the ones, let's be honest, who aren't just pushing the send button on the common application. They're choosing to make Barnard their first choice. And those numbers were up 39% this year, which I'm pretty sure is the highest in the country. Equally important, I'll just bear with me for a moment, as I said, I'm a data junkie. We admitted 25% of applicants, which is the lowest admit rate we've ever had. We thought that our yield, that is the number of admitted students who decided to come here, would go down just because the numbers were so large. But in fact, the reverse happened. Our yield was up at 50%. The good news for me is that I love this number. The bad news for my colleagues is that for 570 beds, we now have 646 students. So we are buying hammocks and hoping for the best. And next year, we are going to be way more selective even than we were this year. Interestingly as well, I promise these are my last numbers, but in the freshman class, the first-year class, 7% of the students will be coming from outside the United States. That's up from 3.5% just a few years ago. 9% of the class will be African American, which is up from 7% last year. Small numbers still, but a really sizable increase. And 10.5% of the class will be Latina, up from 8% last year. This will be the most diverse class we've ever had on campus. And when this amazingly talented, well-educated, diverse class comes here, they're going to get a different introduction to Barnard. We are creating for the first time what we're calling a Circles program. And what that will do is it will take the class of 646 students and divide them into smaller groups of about 80 students each. This is basically modeled on what some of our peer colleges do with residential houses or residential colleges. We believe that putting the students into these smaller groups will give them an easier sense of community from the moment they show up on campus. So they will identify, we're still figuring out what to call these societies. At the moment, they will either be named after bears, which is what the students want, or after famous alumni, which is what we want, but we're fighting that out. But once they are a member of either the Margaret Mead or the Grizzly Circle, they will have an identity. We will assign a few trustees to work with this group. A large number of our older students want to be mentors and big sisters to the incoming students. Each circle will have faculty advisors, and we think it will really create an easier entree into the first year of college, which, let's be honest, is always a tough transition. We're also tweaking the orientation itself. In the past few years, you may or may not know, all of Barnard's orientation has been done jointly with Columbia. We're now going to have a day and a half that's purely Barnard, so that the students really get their Barnard identity early on. And then finally, and again, many of you probably know this, but I want to underscore it, this September, we will be celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Barnard Center for Research on Women. The BCRW, as I'm sure you all know, has really been a flagship program for this college and for feminism. It is where feminism happened to a large extent. We have an incredible history and current situation of feminist scholars, feminist history, feminist documents, and we want to both celebrate this incredible 40-year history and probably more importantly, look to the future. What does feminism mean for the next 40 years? What does feminism mean for our current cadre of students, many of whom, quite frankly, do not define themselves as feminists? So how do we think about the future of this incredible gem at Barnard? So I checked with my wonderful colleague Janet Jacobson, who directs the center, before coming in, and she told me it was okay to say this. We want all of you to come to the 40th anniversary. Suzanne Vega, class of '81, will be performing. And Janet really, along with me, extends the invitation. Let us know your stories. Many of you have been working within feminist circles on the forefront of feminism, have experiences that we want to capture and record and build upon. So please feel free to contact either me or Janet, or I can't see Ruth Sonnenschein, but I'm going to volunteer. Ruth, may I volunteer you? Ruth can collect your names, your stories, and share them with Janet. We really want to celebrate this critical part of the college's history and get a group together to help us figure out where we move from here. And just finally, I want to introduce mention a few people who are in transition here at the college. We have a brand new Vice President of Development who is not here with us today, but I just want to let you know that Bret Silver will be moving into that role. He will be joining us from jazz at Lincoln Center, so a very interesting background, and we look forward to his arrival. We also have a fabulous new dean of the college who I want you all to meet while you're here. So let me introduce the amazing Avis Kingston. Stand up, please. Barnard class of 1984. And one of the sad milestones for this year is that we are also saying goodbye to one of our most beloved members of the community, but it's only a partial goodbye. Liz Boylan, our provost, is abandoning us to go to the Sloan Foundation, and we will miss her deeply, but know she will stay involved. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.